Welcome to Heidi Relationships. Today, we'll read some more stories from Reddit. But before we start, I would really appreciate if you could subscribe to the channel, like the video if you enjoyed it, and maybe leave a comment down below. That would help the channel a lot. Thank you very much in advance. The first one is titled, "My brother gave my furniture away while I was on vacation. I sued him." I never thought I'd be writing about suing my own brother. Sometimes things happen that make you question everything you thought you knew about family. I'm B, and this is the story of how my brother Mark's sense of entitlement led to one of the most difficult decisions I've ever had to make. In the time leading up to the incident, I'd spent years carefully furnishing my home. As an interior designer, my apartment wasn't just a living space. It was my portfolio, my sanctuary, and a testament to my journey in the industry. Every piece had a story, from the vintage Eames chair I'd rescued from an estate sale to the custom-made sectional sofa that had eaten up 3 months of savings. My clients often visited for consultations, so maintaining a stylish, well-appointed space wasn't just about personal preference. It was crucial for my business. The trouble began when I planned my first real vacation in 5 years. I'd landed a major commercial project that had kept me working 60-hour weeks for months, and the successful completion meant I finally had both the time and money for a 3-week trip to Europe. It was meant to be a celebration of my hard work and a chance to gather inspiration for future projects. "Are you sure you don't want me to just stay at your place while you're gone?" Mark had asked during our weekly family dinner 2 weeks before my departure. "I could water your plants, get your mail." I shook my head, stirring my coffee. "Thanks, but I've already arranged everything. My neighbor from next door is handling the plants and mail, and I've got a security system with cameras." "Come on, B," he pressed. "Your place is way nicer than my apartment, and I could use a change of scenery while I'm between jobs." That was another issue. Mark had been between jobs for the past 8 months, ever since getting laid off from his IT position. At 34, he'd moved back in with our parents before finding a cheap studio apartment, but he seemed more focused on playing video games than job hunting. "I'm not comfortable with that, Mark," I said firmly. "I run my business from home, and I have client files and samples there. It's not just about having a nice place to crash." He rolled his eyes. "You always were the uptight one. Mom, tell her she's being ridiculous." Our mother, ever the peacekeeper, tried to smooth things over. "Mark, honey, it's Bee's home. She has the right to decide who stays there." "Whatever," he muttered, stabbing at his dessert. "Not like you're even using the place while you're gone." I should have recognized that tone. It was the same one he'd used as a teenager when he'd borrow my things without asking, always with the justification that I wasn't using them at the moment anyway. The weeks before my trip passed in a blur of preparation, both for my vacation and for ensuring my business would run smoothly in my absence. I arranged for my assistant to handle ongoing projects and set up auto responses for my emails. The day before my flight, I did a final walkthrough of my apartment, making sure everything was in order. I remember standing in my living room, looking at my carefully curated space. The afternoon sun was streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows, highlighting the texture of my wool area rug and casting warm shadows across my collection of mid-century modern furniture. The space felt peaceful, ready for my return. "See you in 3 weeks," I whispered to no one in particular, then locked up and headed to the airport. Europe was everything I'd hoped for and more. I visited design houses in Milan, explored antique markets in Paris, and spent countless hours sketching ideas in tiny cafes. I was so engrossed in my adventures that I barely checked my phone, limiting myself to quick texts to my parents and essential email checks. That's why I missed the signs that something was wrong at home. My neighbor, the one watching the house, had tried to reach me several times, but between the time difference and my sporadic phone use, we never connected. She'd left voicemails that I hadn't checked, assuming they were just updates about my plants. My security system had sent notifications about movement in my apartment, but I'd dismissed them, thinking they were just her doing her daily checks. I returned home late on a Sunday night, jet-lagged but happy, my head full of ideas for future projects. The taxi dropped me off in front of my building, and I wheeled my suitcase to the elevator, eager to sink into my comfortable bed. The first hint that something was wrong came when I opened my apartment door. The air felt different, emptier somehow. In the darkness, the shapes of my furniture seemed wrong, but I initially blamed it on my exhaustion. Then I turned on the lights. My living room was almost empty. The vintage Eames chair, gone. My custom sectional vanished. The wool area rug, the artisan coffee table, the statement lamps all disappeared. Even my dining set, a restored Danish modern piece I'd spent months tracking down, had vanished. I stood there, my suitcase forgotten by the door, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. My first thought was burglary, but there was no sign of forced entry. Besides, what kind of thieves take furniture but leave the expensive electronics? That's when I noticed the note on my kitchen counter, written in Mark's messy scrawl. B. Since you weren't using any of this stuff while you were gone, I found it better homes. These people really needed furniture, and you can always buy more with all the money you make. Don't be selfish. Mark. I read the note 3 times, my hands shaking with increasing rage. Then I did what any rational person would do. I called the police. I'd like to report a theft, I told the dispatcher, my voice surprisingly steady. My brother gave away my furniture without my permission while I was on vacation. 2 officers arrived within 20 minutes. They took my statement, photographed the note, and confirmed there was no sign of forced entry. They were sympathetic, but explained that since Mark had a key, emergency spare I'd given our parents years ago, and had left a note claiming it was a gift, this might be considered a civil matter rather than criminal theft. You'll want to document everything that's missing, Officer Rodriguez advised, handing me his card. Take photos of the empty spaces, find any receipts or documentation of purchase, and get an estimate of the total value. Then you might want to consult with a lawyer. After they left, I called my parents. It was nearly midnight, but this couldn't wait. B, my mother answered groggy. Are you back already? Where's Mark? I demanded, pacing my empty living room. He's not here. B, what's wrong? You sound upset. He gave away my furniture, Mom. All of it. While I was gone, he just came in and gave it away. There was a long pause. Oh no, she whispered. He said he was helping some friends move. We had no idea. I need his address. Now. B, maybe you should wait until morning when you've calmed down. Mom, my home office is gone too. Do you understand what that means? I have client meetings tomorrow and now I have nowhere to conduct them. This isn't just about furniture. This is my business. She gave me his address. 20 minutes later, I was pounding on the door of his ground floor apartment. The lights were on and I could hear movement inside. Mark, open this door right now. The door opened and there stood my brother, looking annoyingly casual in sweatpants and a t-shirt. Hey sis, back already? Where is my furniture? I demanded, pushing past him into his apartment. That's when I spotted it, my vintage Eames chair, sitting in his living room like it belonged there. Oh, that, he said, following my gaze. Yeah, I kept a few pieces. The rest went to people who really needed them. You should have seen how grateful this single mom was when I gave her your dining set. Her kids were eating on the floor before that. I spun to face him. You had no right. That was my property. He shrugged. You weren't using it. Besides, you're always talking about how we should help others. I just did what you're always preaching about. With my things, without my permission. Come on, B. You can afford to replace it all. These people couldn't even afford basic furniture. That's not the point. You stole from me. I didn't steal anything. I redistributed resources to people in need. Isn't that what you liberals are always talking about? I wanted to scream or hit him. Instead, I pulled out my phone and started taking pictures of my chair. What are you doing? He asked, suddenly less smug. Documenting evidence. I want a list of everyone you gave my furniture to. Names, addresses, phone numbers, everything. He crossed his arms. No way. I'm not letting you harass these people. Fine, then I'm calling my lawyer in the morning, and by the way, I pointed to the chair, that's coming back with me tonight. It's not going anywhere, he said, stepping between me and the chair. I need it more than you do. My back's been killing me, and this is the only comfortable chair I've found. That chair cost me $3,000, Mark. Original, not a reproduction. I'm not leaving without it. Try to take it and I'll call the police. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Already done. They have a report on file. Now move, or I'll add assault to the theft charges. Something in my voice must have convinced him I meant business. He stepped aside, muttering under his breath about ungrateful sisters and materialistic attitudes. It took me an hour to get the chair back to my apartment, having to call a TaskRabbit for help with moving it. By the time I finally got to bed, on my mattress on the floor, since my bed frame was among the missing items, it was nearly 3 a.m. The next morning, I called my first client to reschedule, explaining there had been a family emergency. Then I called my lawyer, who'd helped with my business contracts in the past. This is actually pretty straightforward, he said after hearing my story. Your brother committed theft and conversion. That's when someone wrongfully takes control of someone else's property. The fact that he left a note admitting to taking your property without permission makes this nearly open and shut. What about the people he gave the furniture to? I asked. Most of them probably had no idea it wasn't his to give away. They'll have to return it, James explained. Even if they received it in good faith, they don't have legal title to stolen property. We can handle this civilly first, send demand letters. If they refuse to cooperate, we can involve law enforcement. And Mark? We'll sue him for the full value of anything we can't recover, plus additional damages for the impact on your business. Do you have documentation of the furniture's value? Thankfully, I did. As an interior designer, I kept detailed records of all my purchases, including photos, receipts, and insurance documentation. The total value came to just over $42,000. Perfect, my lawyer said. Let's start with a demand letter to your brother. Give him one chance to make this right before we file suit. The letter went out that afternoon. Mark's response came via text. Real nice. Getting lawyers involved in a family matter. Mom's crying because of you. Hope you're happy. I blocked his number. The next few weeks were a nightmare of legal proceedings, family drama, and trying to keep my business running. I had to rent furniture just to maintain a professional workspace for client meetings, adding to the mounting costs of this ordeal. My parents tried to mediate, suggesting I drop the lawsuit if Mark agreed to pay me back when he could afford it. They didn't seem to understand that this wasn't just about money. He violated my home, I tried to explain during yet another tense family dinner. He took things that represented years of hard work and gave them away like they meant nothing. How can you expect me to just let that go? He was trying to help people, my father argued. His heart was in the right place. Then he should have helped them with his own things, I snapped. Or better yet, help them find resources through legitimate charities. Instead, he played Robin Hood with my property and my livelihood. My mother dabbed at her eyes with a napkin. We raised you both to share? This isn't about sharing, Mom. This is about respect and boundaries. Mark has never respected either. Through my lawyer's investigative work, we managed to track down most of the recipients of my furniture. The reactions varied widely. Some were horrified to learn they'd received stolen property and immediately agreed to return it. Others insisted they'd accepted the furniture in good faith and refused to give it back without compensation. As for the single mother Mark had mentioned, when I visited her apartment with James, she burst into tears. I knew it was too good to be true, she said, looking at my dining set where her 3 children were doing homework. But Mark said his sister was redecorating and wanted the furniture to go to a good home. I should have questioned why he was in such a hurry to get rid of it. Looking at her kids and their scattered school books, I felt my anger softening slightly. Keep it, I found myself saying. I'll include the cost in what Mark owes me, but you and your children shouldn't have to eat on the floor because my brother is an idiot. She tried to protest, but I insisted. Later, my lawyer advised me this was actually a smart move. It would help demonstrate to the court that I was being reasonable while still seeking justice. Not everyone was as sympathetic as the mother, though. A couple who had received my custom sectional tried to claim they'd paid Mark for it, producing a suspicious-looking receipt for $500. My lawyer quickly proved the receipt was backdated. Your brother's actions have created quite a mess, James commented as we reviewed the growing file of evidence. He distributed your property to at least 8 different households across 3 counties. Some items have already been resold. Your Eames chair was the only piece he kept for himself? As far as I know, I replied. Though I wouldn't put it past him to have sold some pieces too. The lawsuit proceeded faster than I expected. Mark's defense was weak. He tried to claim I had verbally agreed to let him redistribute my furniture, but had no evidence to support this. The note he'd left, combined with text messages where he basically admitted to taking the furniture without permission, made our case strong. 3 months after my return from vacation, we had our day in court. Mark showed up without a lawyer, apparently thinking he could charm the judge the way he'd always charmed our parents. Your Honor, he began, my sister has always been materialistic. She spends thousands on furniture while others have nothing. I was just trying to balance things out a little. The judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s, was unimpressed. Sir, did you have your sister's permission to enter her home and remove her property? Well, no, but did you have her permission to give away her belongings? She wasn't using them. She was on vacation. That's not what I asked. Did you have permission? No, but I left a note explaining, I'm sorry, but leaving a note explaining your theft doesn't make it less of a theft. Your sister's temporary absence from her home did not transfer ownership of her property to you. The fact that you believed others might make better use of her belongings is irrelevant. Your actions show a disturbing disregard for property rights and personal boundaries. The judge's ruling was comprehensive. Mark was ordered to pay me the full value of all unrecovered furniture, $31,500, plus additional damages for business interruption, $5,000, the cost of rental furniture, $2,800, and legal fees, $4,500. The total came to $43,800. I don't have that kind of money, Mark protested. The court is aware of your financial situation, the judge replied. You will set up a payment plan through the court. If you fail to make payments, your wages will be garnished when you return to employment. Perhaps this will help you understand the seriousness of your actions. As we left the courthouse, my mother was waiting outside. "Bea, please," she began. "He can't afford these payments. Can't we work something out as a family?" I turned to face her, suddenly tired of being the bad guy. "Mom, what would you have done if Mark had given away all your furniture while you were on vacation? Would you have just smiled and said, 'Oh well, at least someone else can use it'?" She didn't answer. This isn't about money anymore. It's about consequences. Mark has spent his entire life thinking the rules don't apply to him, and you and Dad have enabled that behavior. It stops now. That was 6 months ago. Mark has made exactly 2 payments so far, totaling $800. James assures me we can begin wage garnishment proceedings once he finds employment. Most of my furniture remains unrecovered, though I did get back a few pieces in addition to the Eames chair. I've slowly begun refurnishing my apartment, but it's different now. Every piece I buy comes with a bittersweet reminder of what happened. My parents still think I was too harsh, though they've stopped trying to make me drop the judgment. Mark hasn't spoken to me since the court date. Last week, I received an unexpected letter from Teresa Martinez. She enclosed a photo of her kids doing their homework at my old dining table, along with a heartfelt thank you note for letting them keep it. Looking at those smiling faces, I felt a complicated mix of emotions. While I still believe Mark was completely wrong in what he did, I can't help but appreciate that some good came from this mess. I've installed new locks, a better security system, and revoked all spare keys. My home is mine again, and I'm gradually rebuilding both my space and my sense of security. The experience has taught me valuable lessons about boundaries, family dynamics, and the importance of standing up for yourself, even when it hurts. Sometimes, when I look at the empty spaces where my carefully chosen pieces once stood, I feel a fresh wave of anger at Mark's betrayal. But then I remember that mother's kids doing their homework at that table, and I realize that sometimes justice and compassion can coexist. I'm still waiting for my brother to understand the difference between genuine generosity and stealing from others to play the hero. As for my parents, our relationship is slowly mending, though things will never be quite the same. They've started to acknowledge that their permissive attitude toward Mark's behavior over the years contributed to this situation. It's a small step, but it's something. In the end, this isn't just a story about furniture or money or even family drama. It's about respect, boundaries, and the sometimes painful process of standing up for what's right, even when the person you're standing up to is family. I hope Mark eventually learns from this experience, but I'm no longer willing to sacrifice my own well-being waiting for that to happen. For now, I'm focused on rebuilding, not just my home, but my sense of trust and security. And this time, I'm making sure the boundaries I set are as solid as the locks on my door. Here are my thoughts about the story. First off, let me tell you, siblings can do some crazy stuff, but this is next-level audacity. The part that really got me was how the brother, Mark, acted like he was some kind of furniture redistributing Robin Hood. Like, bro, you can't just walk into someone's home and decide you're running a charity now with their stuff. But what really made my blood boil, though, was the parents' reaction. Classic enabler behavior right there. "Oh, he was just trying to help people." "No, Karen and Kevin, I'm just making up their names, but you know exactly the type. Your son committed actual theft and tried to justify it with some half-baked social justice warrior nonsense. The mom crying about lawyers getting involved? Please, where were those tears when her daughter came home to an empty apartment? You know what's funny? I actually started off thinking maybe Bea, the sister, was being a bit extra about the whole thing. Like, yeah, furniture is expensive, but family is family, right? But then she mentioned she's an interior designer and this was literally her business portfolio. That's when it clicked. This wasn't just about some chairs and tables. This dude literally messed with his sister's livelihood because he felt entitled to play Santa Claus with her stuff. Just because you don't have a job doesn't mean your sister has to face that same hardship, you idiot. The part about the single mom with the dining table actually got me, though. That was a real human moment in the middle of all this chaos. Bea letting her keep it? That's how you actually help people with conscious choices about your own property, not by stealing from others. Can we talk about Mark's defense in court? She wasn't using them. She was on vacation. Oh God, like my guy, that's not how property works. By that logic, I could steal your car every time you park it because you're not using it at that moment. But here's what really sticks with me about this whole thing. It's a perfect example of how some people never face real consequences until they're forced to. This Mark dude had probably been pulling smaller versions of this stuff his whole life, getting away with it because family and he means well. Then he finally did something so outrageous that his sister had no choice but to drop the hammer on him legally. The fact that he's only paid $800 of a $43,800 judgment tells you everything you need to know about his actual character. He's not some misunderstood humanitarian. He's just a guy who never learned that other people's stuff isn't his to give away. You know what's kind of sad, though? This family will probably never be the same, and the worst part is it was all so unnecessary. If Mark had really wanted to help people in need, he could have, I don't know, maybe helped them find actual charitable organizations, or donated his own stuff, or even, here's a crazy thought, gotten a job and bought furniture for people himself. It would all make significantly more sense, but that would actually require him to put some effort in, wouldn't it? What a piece of work. But anyways, guys, with this, we've reached the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe and like the video/comment if you enjoyed it. I'll see you again tomorrow.